What's your least favorite episode?
Oh, well, I don't even remember the name of it, but what's his name? Johnny Two Shoes. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. For our first question, Andy Duggan asks us to make our final plausible and non-plausible predictions for The Mandalorian Season 3.
We've got less than a week away until The Mandalorian premieres, so yeah, it's time to make our final stupid predictions.
It's crunch time.
One of them, one real prediction that we think probably will happen, and then, I don't know, we'll discuss wild things, but we'll just do predictions all over the place. For my plausible prediction, I think that this is the final season where Din is going to follow the helmet rule. I think that by the end of it, he will be willing to take his helmet off and on again. Like, he'll put it on when he needs protection.
Right.
But he'll take it off and let his face free. We'll see Pedro Pascal a lot more often.
I mean,
probably in season 4.
That's what we all want,
I know.
Isn't it?
Yeah. If you're gonna cast him, like, let me see him.
I mean, maybe that depends on Pedro's schedule, though. Like, will he be there enough to film everything needed?
Right, he's a busy person. He is very in demand right now, but I think they're gonna try to get him in the show more.
Yeah, I think so, too. I like that. That makes sense.
It just makes sense for his story arc as well, of, like, okay, it's time to set aside all of these rules that Mandalore, the person, made long ago. Like, they're not relevant now, so let's update the times, armor.
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe the armor. Okay, that could be my implausible prediction. Maybe the armorer will take her helmet off. Maybe we'll get to see Emily Swallow.
She might be like, over my dead body.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. That's why I say it's implausible. But that if he were able to get through to her, that's a huge victory.
That would be a good way to shame her. Have her walk through the streets without a helmet.
I don't want him to shame her, but just, like, change her point of view.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can get the septa from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Let's see. For my plausible prediction, I'm going to say that Din and Bo-Katan team up.
Right. I mean, I think we've seen that in the trailer.
Well, it might have,
okay.
It might be like a little switcheroo thing, because they've also made her out to be kind of a villain. Like, she wants to take the Darksaber from Din, and she wants to take over Mandalore. So it's, I don't know. I think it's hard to say at this point.
I don't think they're treating her as a villain. I think an antagonist, kind of a person who is not super happy with Din taking what she views as hers, but that's what I think her journey is this season, of accepting that she wants what's best for Mandalore, even if she is not its leader. So I think instead of, like, convincing the armorer to remove her helmet, Din will probably convince Bo-Katan that he is worthy of the Darksaber.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you have any implausible predictions?
I probably have a few. I don't know how implausible they are, though. The first one I thought of was that Grogu would actually say a real word. I still think that's implausible, because he's too cute, and I don't know that fans are ready to hear him speak words yet.
I can't decide if I'm ready for that.
Yeah.
I feel the same way, because it feels like giving him a name, which they did it, and we all accepted it eventually. Mm-hmm. You're very much on the Grogu train now, but when it first was mentioned, you were like, no.
Yeah. My other implausible thought was that they would destroy the Darksaber.
Oh.
That's a touchy one,
yeah,
because I don't know if I want that to happen,
right.
But I could see the meaning behind it.
Yeah, like, kind of forging a new way that we don't need to follow whoever is holding this weapon.
Yeah.
I agree, it's implausible. I can see where you're coming from. I was very much on board with the idea of, to bring up Game of Thrones again, that they would destroy the Iron Throne, which it did get destroyed by a dragon, but I was expecting them to maybe tear it apart to defend the realm from the White Walkers. That, to me,
that dragon, what is it made out of?
Since it was forged through dragon fire,
yeah,
that I thought that it would be cool if they all stopped fighting over the throne and tore it apart to save the people.
Yeah.
And then that didn't happen at all.
Well, I also feel like that could be too similar to what happened to the Skywalker saber in The Last Jedi, where, you know, it's Rey and Kylo fighting over it and it just rips in half.
It's destroyed and it's repaired and now it's buried.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like both of them, I feel, serve this archetype of like the mythical sword, that whosoever wields this sword will have the power to blah blah blah. Whether you're a Mandalorian or a Jedi, I guess it makes a difference. But yeah, right now I think the Darksaber is serving too much mythical importance for it to be destroyed, but it would be interesting if they went about that.
As far as cameos go, Tar Vizsla.
You know what? Yeah,
let's throw that out there.
That I feel like it's right in between plausible and implausible, but I think it's time. Like, we've seen the Armorer do a little history lesson, and we got flashbacks to the destruction of Sundari. Let's do a flashback to Mandalore or Tar Vizsla, the creation of the Darksaber. Let's see him as a Mandalorian and a Jedi.
Because there's a scene where it looks like someone's picking up a helmet out of the ashes, and I assume that that's on Mandalore. And so I could just see a scene like that where there's a voiceover of maybe the Armorer talking about Tar Vizsla, and then we see some flashbacks of Tar Vizsla on Mandalore. Something like that. There's
also, people have pointed out, you know, we see the scene that looks like an Order 66 scene. It looks like the continuation of Grogu's flashback from the Book of Boba Fett. I think that's what it is, because it does show Grogu and his face and the lightsabers reflected in his eyes. But people are like, what if they're doing a bait and switch? What if this is actually Mandalorians raiding the Jedi Temple to steal back the Darksaber? Because it was held in the Jedi Temple after Tar Vizsla's death, and then Clan Vizsla was like, no, that's ours, and they came for it. That could be cool.
Yeah. Or Mappa wants to know our thoughts on the continuing reveals surrounding Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
So IGN has been, like, every single day putting out more videos and articles about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I am eating it up. I'm loving all of it. I think the most recent video that they did was all about Kovo, that new planet, and how it's kind of a hub, but it's also very open for exploration. And they likened it to the first time you step out on the Great Plateau in Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I love that game.
Yeah.
They also talk about and show off a puzzle room, which also feels very Breath of the Wild, like these optional things you can go in and use the Force to solve puzzles, and I'm very into that. I think that's really fun.
Yeah. I think they put out an article more recent about the dude that's with him.
The dude, yeah.
The dude.
Bode, I think his name is.
Yeah, just kind of talking about how there's going to be some, not necessarily NPC characters, but in-character gameplay on your side, like, to help you.
That article, they gave it a very specific name because they are non-player characters, but yeah, they're gonna be on the missions with you and they're gonna help you out, which I'm still like, Marin got to do that a little bit in Fallen Order. She helps you with the Terran Malicos fight. Oh my god, it would be so much fun if it was Cal and Marin fighting alongside one another, a Jedi and a Night Sister.
Give us more Night Sister magic, please.
That would just be such a unique experience. So I'm hopeful for that. Really, I really liked that IGN video talking about how kind of they were checking off all of their criticisms of Fallen Order, which I adore that game. There are definitely criticisms of it. And he was just like, the map's better. Check. Combat's more interesting and dynamic. Check. There's fast travel now. Check. So just, I think that they really looked at the criticisms people had of Fallen Order, and they were like, let's fix it all. So I do think it's going to be Fallen Order, but bigger and better. I'm excited about that. I like the exploration.
Yeah.
The cosmetics sound so much better than just like a pink poncho. I love the pink poncho, but it's just a bunch of poncho colors.
You can dress up as Obi-Wan Kenobi now.
Yeah.
You can wear Jedi robes.
They're not just color changes, color palette swaps of the same outfit. It's like you can get Jedi robes, Luke's. I really like that they went that direction. I feel like Lucasfilm, especially in games for a while, they were like, we don't want to do anything that would mess with canon, which it's like, okay, it's not really canon that Cal ran around in Obi-Wan Kenobi's outfit or Han Solo's outfit, but it's fun. So like, let us do it. But I just think that everything we've seen so far looks like a really interesting game. I think what I love the most about Fallen Order is the story, and I really like the gameplay as well, but the story is where it's at, and I'm excited to see that the gameplay might be on par with the story this time around, and I'm like super psyched for that.
Yeah. The ability to mount animals and like ride them sounds really cool to me. I loved that part in Jedi Fallen Order where you get to like ride that giant bird thing, but it wasn't really you riding it. It was kind of a cutscene thing.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for all the droids that you'll be able to fight. It'll be nice and less like discouraging being able to fight droids instead of people.
Yeah.
For a lot of things, you know, maybe you won't feel so bad, but
I never felt bad about killing the stormtroopers.
It's true. But like the Magna Guards sound cool. The DT Sentry droids sound really scary. Like it sounds like even if you chop off a limb, they're still going to come for you.
Yeah.
So, and the droidicas, a lot of people are excited about. So,
yeah, all of the enemies sound more dynamic as well. It all sounds like, hey, did you like Fallen Order? Here's more of it, but it's bigger and better in just about every way. That's the hope anyway.
Yeah.
But I really think that there were probably some things in Fallen Order that they just didn't have time to implement the customization and different costumes and stuff. Some of the things from Fallen Order, I think it just came down to a time issue, and now they've really like fixed all of that. Sounds good.
Spider-Man of Earth 1218 asks what our favorite and least favorite episodes of The Mandalorian are so far.
That was kind of on my mind because I just went through my Mandalorian rewatch. I did those videos, everything that I love about season 1 and 2, which you can watch now if you want. Let's start with favorite. I know mine if you need to think.
Go ahead.
I think my favorite is the Marshal. I mean, that's not really a surprise with all the Cobb Vanth stuff, but I know like most people were over the moon for Luke Skywalker. I loved it too. I loved Bo-Katan, but I just remember the disbelief when people were like, Timothy Olyphant has been cast as Cobb Vanth in season 2 of The Mandalorian. I was like, BS. There's no way. There's no way that's happening. So then I just vividly remember, and this is probably when I was like, we should be recording these reactions. Because like, I'm not the biggest reactor, but when the Marshal title came up on screen and they were like, there's a Mandalorian on Tatooine at Mos Pelgo, title the Marshal, I was like, they're not doing this. They're not going to do this. And then like he walked in and I was like, that's Boba Fett's armor, but it's not Boba Fett for sure. That whole build up was so great. And then the rest of the episode is phenomenal with the fight against the Krayt Dragon and everything.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm trying to think because I didn't rewatch the second season when you did, so I'm not really sure, but the first one that came to my mind was the Heiress. Just the introduction of Bo-Katan was so cool. That music like sticks into my mind every time I think of that scene. I hear the music play, and just getting Katie Sackhoff in live action in Star Wars, and like everything about that episode, the action is so good.
Honestly, I think that might be my second favorite one too. I kind of a similar reaction of the title of the Heiress, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And these were rumors that was like, Katie Sackhoff's coming back to play Bo-Katan. I was like, yes, she is. Like, I fully believed that. But still, when she comes landing on that platform and it's kind of obscured because you're like from Din's point of view, but I was like, I saw a flash of that helmet and was like, that's it. She's here.
The only thing, you know, it doesn't have enough of is Grogu.
I guess so, because he gets left with Frog Man and Frog Lady to be babysat.
The frog couple. But he does learn a valuable lesson to maybe not eat those eggs because they're going to hatch into other frogs.
I do love that moment where he's like, he sees why they were so important, and he's like playing with the little baby frog. And I love that that's a whole other thing. Frog Lady and Frogman is such a great little moment where seeing them reunited is like so earnest, and so it's so goofy but heartfelt at the same time. And it's like, I love when Star Wars can do that.
And there's so many like great like real props and like not a lot of CGI. Like the alien species are all just like real special effects, makeup and prosthetics and all that. And I love when Star Wars looks and feels more real.
Yeah. It's such a pulpy episode because you get Frogman, Frog Lady, the Mon Calamari and the Quarren, the Chowder Hose, the octopus in the soup, and then all of the Mandalorian stuff, which is just great. The assault on the freighter is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I love all that. What's your least favorite episode?
Oh, well, I don't even remember the name of it, but what's his name? Johnny Two Shoes.
Johnny Two Shoes, the gunslinger.
Yeah.
Toro Calican.
Yep, that's the one.
Why Johnny Two Shoes?
I don't know.
What was that? Johnny Two Shoes.
I just don't like a kid like that with such a big attitude coming in and like, I don't know. I just didn't like it.
Yeah. The episode 5 does a lot of fun stuff for Mos Eisley, but I do remember when I was like, oh, we're going back to Tatooine. Okay. But it was still neat to see it in a different perspective. And then, yeah, I mean, you're supposed to not like him. So
yeah,
there is that. But it's kind of a rougher episode. Mine, I'm going to bring up, I think is more controversial. I really struggle with the first half specifically of The Prisoner. Is that the next chapter 6? The one where they go and they have to break out the Twi'lek. Rewatching it, like, I just forgot how terrible all of like Mando's old crew were. And again, that is the point. Like, you're supposed to see these are the kinds of people he used to hang out with. And you're like, oh, he's come so far, thank goodness. But every single one of them, they're so over the top and how like, look how bad we are. And like, I'm hissing at you and growling at you. And like, Berg is just stomping around the Razor Crest, like slamming his fists on it for no reason. I was like, everyone just chill out. Well,
I mean, what you just said about the episode on Trask for it being pulpy, I think that makes that episode pulpy. And like, I don't mind it, but I get it.
Yeah. But all of that makes the second half so much better, which I do really like the second half where they all get what's coming to them. The fight with Berg is great when he slams the door on him. The shot of Mando walking down the hall towards Mayfeld, fantastic. Like, there's a lot of great stuff in it, but I really, really struggle through the first 10, 20 minutes or so where I'm just like, these people are grinding my gears.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
KJB Wits wants to know how The Mandalorian will justify Grogu's return for people who didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett.
I think that they're not going to do a whole lot. I mean, I think they're just going to be previously on The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. There's really no reason for them to justify it, in my opinion, because people just want to see Grogu and Din together. And the fact that they did it in another show is unorthodox, to say the least. They're gonna, in my eyes, they're like, look, this is like our biggest thing we got going for us right now. We don't have to justify what we did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion, I'm over it now, but when it happened in the Book of Boba Fett, I was like, I wanted them to spend some significant time apart. I don't really care that it happened in another series. Like, it was an adjustment realizing that the Book of Boba Fett was so tightly connected to the Mandalorian, but like, I just wish that we got to see more of Din on his own. I think that episode is so good where he is a bounty hunter again and you're like, oh, you're kind of going backwards, man. Like that's the journey I wanted to see him go on, and then like figure out who he was without the child, and then they can reunite. The fact that it happened so quickly, I'm over it now. But
yeah, I understand, why they did it, and I'm sure looking back once we're well into season 3, we'll be like, okay, it's better that they went ahead and had that happen so that we can start out running with the two of them already together. Like, we can just spend that whole 3rd season moving forward so that we don't have to explain how they got back together.
Right. Because like all of that happened almost exactly a year ago, and I'm fully just like, let's do it. Let's get back to Din and Grogu going around the galaxy, having fun, being awesome together. And
now Grogu has a little more confidence in his use of the Force, thanks to Luke. So
it's like, I think I could have just stood with seeing them apart and actually being on adventures with them. Because like I can kind of imagine that, okay, Din's been off on his own for a while, and we get all of the basics of him backpedaling or whatever. But it would have been interesting to have like an episode about Din and an episode about Grogu, and then one about Din and one about Grogu, and then maybe halfway through the season or at the end of season 3 they get back together and everything is great. But
that would have been hard without, with the fact that Grogu can't talk.
Well, I mean, he'd be with Luke, but yeah, that's a lot of Luke, which I know is probably a huge budgetary constraint. But yeah, they did it. I've accepted it, and I'm ready for season 3.
Starchasm asks if we'll get to see the New Republic Senate and how it operates in season 3.
We can go back to plausible and implausible predictions. I don't think we're going to do a lot with the New Republic Senate, but we did see a city planet in the trailer, and people are saying it's Coruscant, or I think it's Hosnian Prime. Either way, I think it is going to be the New Republic capital, wherever it is in that time.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think we'll see much of the Senate.
Right. I don't see this being the political thriller all of a sudden that Andor was. I think they're going to keep it more on the adventure side, but seeing like Carson Teva in the trailer and him being like, hey everyone, just want to point out there's trouble a-brewing in the Outer Rim and you should all pay attention to it.
Yeah. I think the fact that we know Carson Teva's in it, again, would tell me that anything we see on a planet like that, like Hosnian Prime or Coruscant, whatever it is, it's going to be more about their like law enforcement side of things rather than the Senate side of things.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more about the military and whatever is going on with them, because Carson Teva with his awesome like flight jacket, love that. Do you think it's Coruscant or Hosnian Prime?
I think it's probably Coruscant, but I hope it's Hosnian Prime.
That's me too. And that's, I think, where a lot of my, me saying it's Hosnian Prime is more because I want it to be, just because, I mean, they might as well be the same planet.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to spend some time there.
Well, we've never really seen Hosnian Prime.
Exactly.
Except for that one part where it gets blown up.
Right. So like if we get to spend a little bit of time on Hosnian Prime, it will start to develop its own like unique planet's identity instead of just being, it's another Coruscant.
Yeah. On to YouTube questions. Zach Langdon wants to know if it's possible Kira didn't actually betray Maul and strand him on Malachor.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the popular opinion theory about how Maul wound up on Malachor is that maybe Kira did it. And that's kind of what I've been assuming for now. But that's just a bunch of Star Wars fans kind of just drawing the straight line from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. We know Kira was in Crimson Dawn. We know she was getting closer with Maul. All of a sudden, Maul's stuck on Malachor. So what happened? Kira left him there.
Yeah. I mean, I do really like that theory. But it's completely plausible that is not what happened.
It's interesting, and they bring this up, that the Hidden Empire comics and the Crimson Reign comics kind of talk about Kira, or she talks about Maul, and it's not like in a negative light. She talks very negatively about the Sith and talks about how her former master like taught her everything about Palpatine and Vader. Mm-hmm. But still, she may have stranded him there. But I also do like the idea that, you know, he just got so bent on revenge against Sidious that he went to Malachor and got himself stuck there. Like, that seems like a very Maul thing to do too.
That is true. That, you know, he could have been on a mission and something went wrong and then he was stuck there.
Like, I could see an argument between him and Kira where she's like, why are you going to Malachor? And he's like, I have to find a way to destroy the Sith. And she's like, let it go. And he's like, I can't. That's like my one thing.
Yeah. Literal Table 756 asks if we'll see the Purge Troopers from Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
I hope so. So the basic setup for this is that in Obi-Wan Kenobi, he goes to the Fortress Inquisitorius, runs into a couple Purge Troopers, and they have new armor compared to what we have seen in the Star Wars comics and in Fallen Order. And Obi-Wan Kenobi takes place in the same year that Star Wars Jedi Survivor does. So I'm hopeful that the armor is updated to match Kenobi. And I feel like because Fallen Order and the comics back in the day were willing to like work together and make sure this all felt consistent, I feel like Survivor is going to do the same, especially since they probably did have to work with Obi-Wan Kenobi a bit and be like, okay, the Fortress Inquisitorius, this is what it looks like, and what it looks like underwater where you infiltrate it.
Yeah. I think it depends on where we see them show up in the game. Like, there could be spots where we go in the game where, you know, it's the old guys.
Yeah.
And they're just there because they haven't been swapped out for the new armor. And that could be, like, part of the story of that location. Like, everything there is older. And then later we might see the updated ones. But what is different about the armor?
Mostly the helmets. I mean, it's still, like, mostly black with like red accents. But the helmet looks pretty significantly different. I think that people are asking this question because there was a gameplay video released and it was just kind of a combat arena, and one of the Purge Troopers from Fallen Order was in it. And so people were like, oh, did they not update this? And so, like, that's not from the gameplay itself. It could be that we encounter all new Purge Troopers, but in the combat arena, they still wanted you to be able to fight the ones from Fallen Order. Or it could be that in Obi-Wan Kenobi, the only Purge Troopers we see have blaster rifles. So maybe they have different armor, and maybe the ones with the electro batons have new armor. Maybe each different type has a new helmet now. Yeah,
I mean, I won't be disappointed if they didn't update them for the game, just because I know stuff like that is hard to do in games and animation to update to a whole new character model. But maybe.
It's one of those things that if they do it, I'll be like, yes, like, just love that consistency. If they don't do it, I'll be like, oh well.
Yeah.
And then I'll cut them in half.
And then you'll kill them. That bald man wants to know if we could see the Bendu or something like it in Ahsoka.
That's interesting.
Well, because we don't know what really happened to the Bendu. He just, like, stormed off.
Oh, I like that.
That just came to me, and I was like, yeah.
You should be proud.
Yeah, he just, like, literally turned into a storm and left.
Yeah. Like, they shot enough lasers into the storm that he did kind of collapse, and then Thrawn went to shoot him, and then he just disappeared. So I definitely think the Bendu is still out there. Whether or not we see the Bendu or another weird Star Wars-y Force thing in Ahsoka, I would love to. I would really love to make the live action audience, like the people who've never gotten an animation, be like, look at this weird thing. Tell us what you think about it. Because, like, Mortis was an adjustment for me the first time I saw it. I was like, this is so bizarre. But I love it. And now, like, every time it pops up now, I'm like, yeah, Mortis, World Between Worlds, Force Wielders. Like, I love it.
Yeah. I think it's definitely possible because the Bendu can really be anything. I think he can, I think they can shapeshift into just about anything they want to for whatever purpose it is that they're there.
I agree, because they encounter it on Atollon, and the Bendu, like, changed its appearance to be a part of nature there.
Yeah.
And I don't think it is from Atollon. I think it can go wherever it wants. So when we see it again, I don't think it's going to look like it did unless we find it again on Atollon.
Yeah. It's like the ghost of Bob Marley in the Mickey's Christmas Carol. He turns into a doorknob because he can.
Because he can, and he wants to. Well, I was also going to bring up that Dave Filoni drew a picture of Ahsoka with the Bendu. I think it was Ahsoka the White, or maybe it was regular Ahsoka. I'll try to find it so you can include it. Either way, he was like, in Rebels, there wasn't a scene between the two of them, but he wanted to draw what it might have been like. So it seems like something that could be on his mind. Mm-hmm. We don't exactly know what this story is going to tell us. If it's going to involve the world between worlds, I would love that.
Yeah.
Just anytime someone that has only watched the live action stuff is going to get to know something really obscure and weird about Star Wars, that excites me. Just watching people keep going down the rabbit hole.
Ryan asks who we think the villain of the Ahsoka series will be.
So, and they specifically say not the big bad, because I think Thrawn is probably the big bad, but will there be someone that Ahsoka has to encounter throughout the series? I guess kind of like the Moff Gideon. If Thrawn is going to be the big bad of like the Mandoverse, let's just pretend.
Yeah.
Then Moff Gideon would be the primary villain of the Mandalorian.
I think it's possible. I mean, the only thing I can think of is like someone who works for Thrawn.
Yeah.
Like they're his right-hand man.
It's interesting that they already used Rook in Star Wars Rebels, and he got fried to a crisp, so I don't think they can bring him back, but it could be Rook's twin brother.
What's the guy's name from Pelion?
Yeah. I don't see him being like the main villain, because he in the books he's basically always with Thrawn, because we need someone who's like, why did you just do that, Grand Admiral Thrawn? And he goes, let me explain to you how brilliant I am.
So he's not just constantly talking to himself, having this inner monologue.
Yeah, I'm so smart. Yeah, so I think Pelion, who I do hope is in the series, will be more like literally at Thrawn's right hand. But yeah, they could just make up a new Imperial officer. Barisafi jumped into my head. It's like, at some point we got to figure out what happened to her, but
would she be a villain though?
I don't know.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, last time we saw her, she was, but a lot of time has passed since then. She may have turned things around.
Yeah. The villain will be evil. Evil is everywhere.
Honestly, yeah. Like that, I just wonder if there is a need for a specific, like, organic being to be the villain, or if it could just be the struggle to find Ezra again, and they just have a bunch of adventures. I guess I'm kind of expecting it to be adventure of the week-ish, where every episode they get a little closer to Ezra and a little closer.
I still think there's a possibility of not Ezra being a villain, but Ezra needing some convincing to come back.
Yeah, I mean, he's been gone for 10-ish years, so I'm sure he he might have some Stockholm Syndrome. Who knows? Yeah. I don't know. Like, the one clip that they showed at Star Wars Celebration of a close-up of someone's hand, and it looks like they're struggling to use the Force. I'm like, that's probably Ezra. Yeah.
He's probably been gone and disconnected for so long that he just lost his touch.
That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below, or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.